it's accessibility for the people that are coming in. Our barrier to entry is really very low. It's really just having the courage to raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to try this. No experience necessary, and everybody kind of works together and everybody tries to pull in that same direction to really be welcoming and helpful to everybody else that's coming in.
If you're here for improv, go away. This is Other Than Improv with Anthony Francis.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Other Than Improv. I'm your host, Anthony Francis. I know I might look a little different. I grew out my beard. No, that's not what's going on. Actually, we're in virtual reality, and I am here with two very special improvisers. One of them, the creator of this improv space we're in, and the creator of the Improvatars, Eric Callagan. Hello, Eric.
Hello, Anthony Francis.
And also with us today, we have a VR DJ, and he's also a performer with the Improvatars. Please welcome my guest, who we know as Disco Jesus, but your name is Chris Macku.
Correct. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. And I'm sorry I sound a little weird, but I'm obviously wearing a giant VR headset and trying to peek out that little nose portion, like down at the bottom, and read the notes on my phone. So I apologize. There's a lot of gear involved in this, guys. There's like a ton of gear. But thank you for being here. Thanks for being on. We normally don't do video. It's usually an audio podcast, but man, like, we've got to be able to see this. And Eric, you put together this room. You set up the cameras that we're looking at right now. You built this entire theater space. Can you just kind of talk about what this is and how you came about making it?
Yeah. So this actually is kind of like the, I like to think, one of the final iterations. I mean, we'll keep iterating, but we originally started with an alt space blank template, and then I created some custom worlds in Unity and uploaded those to alt space. Now we're in VR chat, and through those different iterations, we kind of learned what worked well for a virtual audience, what didn't work well, and how to make the space feel a little bit full and a little more inviting to people. So, I guess just over the course of a good long while, we've kind of come and settled on this format for VR. So yeah, it works really well.
And you build this in Unity, which is just a software that allows people to use Unity to make games, but Unity is used to create not only this room, but to edit, create avatars, things like that.
Yeah, Unity has done a really great job of positioning themselves with other companies who make games like VR Chat, like AltSpace, like Rec Room, so that people who are at home on their own personal computers can set up their own virtual environments and then upload them into, like I said, VR Chat, Unity. The Unity uploader for those sites is really helpful.
That is well said, better than I could have said it, because I don't really know what's going on. And I'm usually pretty good with this stuff, but we're definitely entering a realm where like 40-year-old Anthony's really starting to feel his age. Because I'm in it though. I'm in it, right? I'm doing it. I'm doing this thing.
You're here.
Yep. Disco, you're a VR DJ. So how does this, and you're an improviser as well, but how does that change for you? What's different for you that might be different? What do you do differently?
Not a lot. So when I DJ, I am completely virtual as well. I use an application called TribeXR, and that application gives me an emulation of actual, like, real world DJ gear. So I'm not using a physical controller. I'm not turning physical knobs and sliding physical faders. I'm doing everything in a virtual space, which allows me to do what I do wherever I am. I travel a lot, so it's one of those. That was one of the big draws for VR for me, was being able to have the ability to do the things that I like to do, whether I'm at home or in various hotel rooms all across the States.
So when you do your VR show, your do VR audience members come and watch you, or is it just you and you're streaming that out on like Twitch or something? Where's your audience at, physically
Yeah.
or virtually?
We have the ability to bring other people that have the TribeXR application in and have that sort of intimate sort of space. And at the moment, we're actually looking at changing things around to really sort of revamp that process and expand that ability so that it's people that aren't necessarily DJs, people that want to just spectate can actually come in and do that. But right now, the vast majority of my performances are being streamed out to someplace like Twitch. And then in order to get those into spaces like VR chat or what was Altspace or any of the other metaverse social platforms, what's usually happening is somebody's capturing that Twitch stream and then using the utilities that were provided by those social platforms to pump that audio and visual feed into the virtual space.
Okay, and a question for both of you. So, and I'm going to just go by your avatar names because that's how I met you and that's how I know you best. Calamander, what would you say brought you into VR? What is it about VR that you were like, I want to do improv in VR? And same for you, Disco. I want to do improv in VR, and also I want to DJ in VR. What was it about VR that drew you to it?
Well, for me, I've told this story a couple times, but for me, I live in a town where I'm sure there are enough people that I could get to do an improv thing in real life, but we just haven't been able to do it yet. I've tried once or twice to start little groups, and for whatever reason, they just fizzle out. And so for me, that's a limitation. It's just geographically, I'm in a kind of remote spot. I'm up north, by the Canadian border. And I had the VR headsets kind of sitting on my shelf collecting dust. I used to rent them out to parties and different things like that, but they've just gotten so cheap and widely accessible that people have them if they want them. So, excuse me, sorry, but no, I
see, it's so real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I actually had to get that burp from my emoji wheel. No, so I woke up on like a Monday, this was just over a year ago, and I was like, I really just want to do a show, an improv show, really a lot like Whose Line Is It Anyway? I know I've got these VR headsets sitting here, like, how can I do it? And I did a quick Google search and Altspace came up. And I scheduled an event for that Thursday. Once I figured out that I could host an event, I could have people there. I scheduled an event for that same Thursday because I knew if I didn't have a deadline, I just wasn't going to do it. And I actually had so many people like volunteer that I didn't even perform in the first show. I was moderating, and there were 4 performers and a host, just like Whose Line. And they did all the improv stuff up there, and I was just happy to be a part of it. And we had like 250 people attend that very first show. It was just crazy. Like people popping in and out of the world. It was just, pretty wild. And then, over the course of, several months, we kind of kept, like I said, iterating, making better performance spaces, collecting better performers, and in Disco's case, sometimes worse performers, but
Right.
No, absolutely.
But no, it's just been awesome just being able to collaborate with these people in here, and they're amazing people that I would have never met otherwise. And so I just love being here in VR with these other wonderful people.
Nice. I got to be honest, it almost doesn't matter what town you're in. It's hard to put a team together. I totally feel that in real life. I know it's hard to build teams, find people to do improv with. Disco, what about you? Yeah, how'd you get here?
So
Other than
I
logging in.
Yes. So we have this thing called a headset, and you put it on.
Skip
no.
forward. Move
Oh,
past that,
okay.
okay.
Well, to skip forward, let's go back. I so I kind of mentioned this earlier. I travel for my day job. I work in industrial robotics, so I go around basically the entire eastern half of the country to various customers and do robot-y things. And so being on the road as much as I am, you can only go to so many bars. You can only spend so much time just sitting watching TV in the hotel room. Especially in some of the places where we go, there's just not always a whole lot to do. And so I had just gotten out of a relationship. I was looking to do some retail therapy, and I started seeing these ads for this device called the Quest 2 that promises fun and entertainment and everything that I was looking for to keep myself entertained on the road in one beautiful, integrated, immersive package. And so that started things down and picking up TribeXR, which was probably my first foray into the creative part of the VR experience. I've been a performer for years and years and years, doing things on stage, music, theater, backstage work. And so getting into that space, which is through TribeXR, I was able to expose myself to something, that being DJing, that I would never probably have found the ability to do just because of money. Basically, I'm getting the ability to access what would normally cost tens of thousands of dollars at a fraction of the cost. Not only that, having the access to a community and to people who are in the business who could get you up to speed very, very quickly. And I've since joined that team teaching now.
Wow, that's incredible.
But yeah, and so being able to perform, and the first time that I was in a performance, that performance bug sort of bit again, and through meeting different people in that space, exposing myself, not like that, being exposed to different groups of people, I managed to find my way to this group called the Improvatars. And so having done improv comedy back in my late teens, it was one of those things where it's like, if I'm going to be doing this, let's see if I can do this as well. And so all of these hobbies that I was forced to give up to go on the road and work my day job, whether it was being in cover bands, whether it was doing community theater, whether it was doing semi-pro stuff, I've now found a way to do that from the road. Again, wherever I am, wherever I have a decent internet connection, I can do a show.
That's so great, and yeah, we're gonna talk more about exposing yourself in a minute. I'm kind of joking, but I'm also not joking, because I do want to talk about these worlds a little bit, because that's really what I want to talk about. I do want to talk a little bit about how improv works here, but as someone who's recently, I would say I'm still in the trial phase of the group. Gosh, I don't remember how we found each other, to be honest. But Calamander, you and I found each other, and then I joined up. But like, it's such through Facebook, yeah, and it was just nice to be able to connect, and really, it feels like improv. It does not feel like a watered down. It doesn't feel like Zoomprov, for damn sure. It feels like real improv in VR. So there's that feeling. I can attest to that. But let's talk a little bit about these worlds, because there's these different VR platforms. So you have because when you say worlds here, everyone listening at home, there are an infinite number of worlds within VR chat. So what we're going to talk about are just the platforms. VR chat is a platform. Facebook Horizons is a platform, and you guys have mentioned, and I tried a little bit with AltSpace VR. So are there of those three, which of these do you think is going to survive the VR platform wars here?
If I
Definitely not
had to,
AltSpace.
yeah, AltSpace is dead. AltSpace is fully dead.
Is it like shutting down, or is it like dead in the eyes of the
It shut
users?
down March 10th, 2023.
Yeah,
okay.
March 10th.
All right, so that's off the tables.
Right.
So
yeah,
there's just
actually March.
Facebook Horizons in this.
Well, there are quite a few, actually, I would say. There's Horizon Worlds, and I think just by sheer resources alone, they will outlast most competitors. I will say that VR Chat has a great model, and they have a really wide fan base, bigger than AltSpace ever had, I think. And they are actually monetizing it, whereas AltSpace was using it more as a sort of a test bed for their other upcoming projects like Mesh and things like that. You've also got Rec Room out there. You've got Roblox. There's Utopia VR that's starting up. What's that other one that's just starting up that's really trying to do everything that AltSpace did?
You've got Spatial is another startup.
Spatial.
You've got some older ones, like for example, Chill Out, which I think which isn't on the standalone side. So that's an important distinction to make when you're creating your multiverse or metaverse platform. Is you have kind of the standalone Quest side, and then you have the PC side of things. And so having more power available to you on the PC kind of can sometimes shut some people out. And so it's important to make sure that if you're looking to maximize your potential audience, to have everything integrated and available for both sides. You've got some of the older ones. Sansar is probably the biggest one that comes to mind. Trying to think of any of the others. There's a few, especially now that AltSpace has shut down. As soon as AltSpace said that they were going to shut down, you started seeing a couple of things pop up trying to basically say, hey, we're going to give you this AltSpace experience. Just come over here with us. And it's a lot of startups. It's a lot of very small development houses. So it's a really interesting time. Yeah, it's a really interesting time right now to kind of see what's coming up. And it is kind of interesting to see who's going to be still around in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years from now.
Right. It sounds like the dust hasn't settled on this. We don't know who the winner is going to be. And I heard we were talking earlier because, well, I won't talk about what we saw because to say it out loud wouldn't make any sense to anyone, including us. I saw a dog riding a goose, riding one of those wooden mannequins that you use for like artistry, like for drawings, like for human form. Anyway, there I said it, and I'm upset that I did.
And then you hopped into VR after that, right?
Right. Then I jumped in VR.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, that was what. But no, so we saw that happening, and you mentioned how this is a lot like MySpace, and Horizons and the other ones are more like Facebook, right? But not in the sense that, I mean, I know Horizons is Facebook, but the point is that in MySpace, for you kids at home who don't know, MySpace, you could do whatever you wanted on your page. You could just do whatever. No one was going to tell you you couldn't do certain things. The only reason you couldn't do certain things is because it wasn't physically possible. But here, that's the same thing. You can really look like whatever you really want. And there's really no limitations in a lot of ways. And like you said, if you're not hurting anybody, what's the problem? And that seems to be what this space is. But yeah, what would you say to that in terms of the freedom of this space? I mean, if you had to pick one, where do you see yourselves going? Yeah, Calamander.
Well, I would say that used to be part of what I saw as the problem with VR chat. But the more I get in here and the more that they update their software to allow moderation and to allow people to protect themselves in here, I think that they're mitigating those problems, because like it is great to have everybody be allowed to change their avatar. This is an AltSpace avatar, actually. I pulled it over from AltSpace, and I'm comfortable in this, and I will make iterations on that as well. But this is just it's nice to be able to upload your own custom model, whereas with Horizon Worlds, like I couldn't even upload the theater. I would have to recreate the theater somehow using their textures and their blocks and things like that. And even then, I would still have limitations. I don't think that they have any plans for a Unity uploader. So my 3D models are locked out of Horizon Worlds. But now that and the other problem with having people, the other side of the coin with having people allow their own custom avatars is that you can have people upload something that will break a world or push everybody out, or so
Right. Just crash my
or
computer.
Right, yeah, or something that's horribly offensive, or something like that, or sexually explicit or something. So there are definitely a couple different sides to allowing so much freedom. And for a long time, VR chat was sort of the Wild West, where I was like, I have alt space. I'm not I'm not going over into VR chat because I don't feel safe over there. But now that I feel safe over here, and have brought the performers over here, and I think a lot of them feel safe. It's definitely I guess warmed me back up to VR chat as a viable option for the improvatars.
I have my menu open, and I'm just showing the audience the different settings. You have these shield settings, so you can change your shield setting, and you can actually customize that so that users. So for you, or for me, for example, as a user, I don't have to see everyone's avatar. I can actually turn off all avatars, all audio. I can only talk to the people I want to talk to. I can only really see who I want to see and hear who I want to hear. Like that episode of Black Mirror. I can literally kind of close out as many people as I want. But Disco, yeah, what do you have to say about that, about the security features here?
Getting a lot better. That I think I had a similar experience to Calamander, where Altspace was my first home in virtual reality, so I think it earned a special place in my heart that way. But the way I've constantly referred to it to everybody that I've talked to when talking about Altspace, is that it was the Goldilocks zone. It wasn't necessarily the biggest place. It wasn't necessarily the best at any one thing, but as a sum of all of the parts and everything that you could do, despite the restrictions that we were given, it was definitely the best at what it was for what a lot of us needed it to be. That said, coming out here into VR chat, where you have so much more power available to you, if you're making like the MySpace versus Facebook analogy, the one that I would make it in return would be, say, Android versus Apple. With Apple, you have this very curated space, this very clean, white, surgical sort of thing. You can do whatever you want as long as you're within this very narrow boundary. But we're going to guarantee that everything that you do in that very narrow boundary is going to be the best experience that it can be. Or you can step out into the Android world, where you can do almost whatever you want within, whatever legal, moral, ethical limits you set for yourself. But know at any time that anything that you can do can possibly break everything, and everything can come crashing down, and it'll just be completely useless to everybody. To kind of answer your question as to which one will survive, or which one's gonna, when the dust settles, I don't know that it's gonna be any one platform. Because going out here and experiencing the different platforms, whether it was VR chat, whether it's Rec Room, anything above, beyond, and in between, you kind of start noticing that they each sort of have their quirks. They each have their sort of way that they want to do things, and their sort of targets. And so once you kind of settle on which one works for you, you might pick one or favor one over the others. But for example, if I have better utilities for what I need to do for a show over in a different one, say spatial, for example, then I'm probably going to be doing more things over there than, say, in VR chat. But right now, for what we're doing, VR chat's working for us.
Let's talk about VR chat and how it's working for improv, because Calamander, you're putting together these performances. I have to say, this amazing stage. Just really, when I walked in the first time, I was like, wow, this is really impressive. But what about the performers? What is the process of getting performers together? How do you create this in VR? I noticed some people came in. We had rehearsal tonight, so this was the rehearsal space as well. And we rehearsed for an hour, which I think is great. Even if the team knows everything, it does. You got to rehearse. We'll talk about that process, about getting people in and doing shows. How does that work in VR? What are some of the challenges you face too that you might not face in the real world?
Yeah, that can be kind of a double-edged sword too, I guess. Some of the benefits are that we can do a live show. We can have 50 people in the audience, and some of those people might say, hey, this is awesome. I really want to do it next time. And for our team, we don't have a huge barrier to entry. Pretty much the only thing is make sure that everybody on stage feels safe. And if you're knocking down other people or, saying something horrible, we probably won't have you back, but we'll usually give everyone a shot, So, in that way, it's really accessible. Anyone in the world really can join. We have Australian performers, Canadian performers. There's British performers or people who live in the UK anyways. And, we even sometimes let the wandering Florida man in, if they so choose.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Thank you for that. I feel seen.
Right. Yes. Florida man. No. So it's really great for bringing together people who, I think all of us would probably struggle to find in real life group. I mean, otherwise we might not do it here at all, so that's really nice. But there can be sometimes, we haven't had this problem this week, but sometimes there can be too many people who want to join, and then you have to kind of make decisions on who's going to perform. There can be issues where, like early on in our show, we didn't have enough performers, and we just said, well, we'll leave that fourth spot open and we'll get a volunteer from the audience. But then they come up and say something really horrible and
audience-y.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so so in those instances, luckily we're getting more tools in VR chat, and at that time it was in Altspace, and we were able to just point at them and poof, you are no longer in our instance. So that is kind of a point to, we don't need necessarily a bouncer. I mean, there's a poster behind you. I can get where we have Marcy, our moderator. She moderates people out of the audience if they are being too disruptive. And I don't know. So that helps a lot that we can moderate things like that.
That's an important tool to have. It's much easier to do than telling people to leave in person.
Yeah. One other tool I would say too that helps us succeed, I guess, would be that we've got a Discord server. It's discord.io, if I can plug it. Discord.io. Yeah. Discord.io/improvatars. And you can go in there, you can interact with the performers. You can choose to, if they get enough votes, they get to eat that day. So there's a lot of different ways you can interact there. If you want to be on a show, you can, send us a DM, and you can get into the rehearsal spaces, get the performer role, and, and then get on a show. And like I said, it's very similar to Who's Line, a lot of the stuff we do. But there's some kind of neat stuff we can do here that is specifically VR oriented too, which is kind of nice, and we can chat about that later, I think. But
Nice, yeah. Well, I want to put the word out to any improvisers I know that have VR. They're doing it, and they're doing it well. But Disco, go ahead. Yeah, what's the experience like for you?
I guess to kind of piggyback on what Callagan's saying, it's the accessibility of it. Whether and its accessibility on several levels, whether it's like, for example, myself, I might be at home. Home is near Cincinnati, Ohio for me, but I might be in Western Tennessee this week. I might be outside Atlanta. I might be in Michigan. I might be in Central Ohio, all within the course of a single week sometimes. So again, it's wherever I have a good internet connection, wherever I can get out here to the metaverse, I'm available to perform. It's accessibility for the people that are coming in. Like Callagan said, our barrier to entry is really very low. It's really just having the courage to raise your hand and say, "Hey, I'd like to try this. No experience necessary. We'll teach you. We'll help get you up to speed." And everybody kind of works together, and everybody tries to pull in that same direction to really be welcoming and helpful to everybody else that's coming in. It's also accessible from the simple fact that, you know, if people have more complicated lives, like for example, the last show that we did in Alt Space, we did sort of a 2-hour end of the world special. Well, that first hour, I had a DJ set, also in Alt Space, in a different world in Alt Space. So it was one of those, hey, I can't make it for the first hour, but I'll come in for the second hour. And so, you know, through the power of virtual reality, instead of finishing my DJ gig, getting out of the club, going to a taxi, taking a taxi to the subway, taking the subway across town to get to the theater, I just had to click a couple of buttons, wait about 10 seconds for the world to load, and I'm coming in basically doing like a wrestling show sort of intro. You know, I stood backstage or stood in the entry hallway, waited for a lull in the action, started doing a chant, and then kind of ran up on the stage just because why not? You know, it's the last show in Alt Space. What are they going to do? Kick me out? So another part of it is accessibility for people that may have maybe some social anxiety sort of issues. You know, people that get up on stage and get stage fright, but they kind of want to do this sort of thing. For some people, it's beneficial. It's helpful to be in an avatar where I may not look like me. You know, I might have, you know, for example, I have, for those of you watching, my avatar has an afro. I am very bald in real life. You know, not that matters. We welcome hair.
So weird.
And
you don't
bald.
sound bald.
Right.
I don't hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We do welcome haired and balded persons in our midst. But
And
for example,
sometimes-
especially
Oh, sorry.
sometimes.
Sorry.
You know, we have people that are here in various costumes and doing cosplay as other people. You know, people that are dressed up as animals, things like that. And so it's an interesting sort of paradigm, being able to play off of all those people and knowing full well that some of those people, if you put them in that same situation in a I call it the Fizziverse as opposed to the metaverse. In a Fizziverse sort of situation where they might totally freeze up, some of these people are actually able to sort of work through that and have that experience, which is incredible.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. You know, because that was a big reason why I originally in Alt Space, I wanted to create an improv theater to do some improv drop-in classes. And I thought this would be a great way because there's so many people that are afraid to do this. And I can say that when I'm here in VR, I dance way more than I dance in real life, or the Fizziverse, as you called it. I just found myself dancing because no one can really see me, and I don't dance in real life. But I find myself, I just can't help myself. I just enjoy. This is not normal for me to do. But you know, but I like that you say that because you're right. It can create an opportunity for people to try something where they are just really the limitations are too strong for them in the physical world, but by coming here and doing it, they can build the confidence to eventually do it in the real world. I believe in that completely. And then also I wanted to say, in terms of avatars, this avatar that I have here has way less body hair than I'm rocking. Way less. Surprisingly less body hair. I can't believe. I mean, I'm covered up for the most part, but like those ankles, there's no body hair on those ankles. I mean, anyway, I don't want to get into that. But Calamander, do you have anything else? Yeah, anything to add on that side of things? And we'll wrap it up here in a second because I wanted to ask you about VR. Well, before we can move on to that, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think that having the avatar is helpful. I think sometimes in my, you know, in the real world, sometimes my extreme good looks can be off-putting, and you know, so in here I can dumb myself down a little bit, and the other performers feel a little bit more at ease.
That I can hear. You can hear it, right, Disco? You can hear the attractiveness. Okay, so
I do wish I had legs and arms, but
yes, yeah. Well, someday, you know, it's just a Unity. It's just 10 hours in Unity to make your own legs and arms. What do you have to... Now? Yep. You don't have to make. You made that yourself.
No, this
avatar
is from Alt Space, so it was pulled from Alt Space assets. And alt space, you never had arms or legs, so all of the and I actually kind of preferred to keep that. It's one thing that I just think sets aside these avatars. You know, some people will bring them in and add arms and legs, but I just prefer it without. So
Nice classic kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's talk real quick before we go. VR sickness. So I don't know about you guys, but when I first strapped on the headset, I tried to play Phasmophobia, which if you're not familiar with this game, that's okay. You might know it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I didn't get very far in the game. Definitely didn't get enough time to get scared because I got incredibly sick within 3 minutes. Now I've been in VR for about, what time is it now? I think we've been in VR for about an hour and a half, I think, maybe almost 2 hours. And I'm starting to feel it now. So I've definitely built up a tolerance. But what would you say to that? Did you get any of that? What's your take on that motion sickness, that VR sickness?
When I first started with VR and I would do like a longer session, I would definitely have that. I think that I've definitely found that games that are more performant with more frames per second are they're easier on the eyes. I mean, if you turn your head and there's, fewer flashes between, that will like really, it won't trick your brain as well, I guess, as something that has a higher frames per second. You know, VR chat is not the greatest place to do that. You know, I think in here we usually get like 60, which is pretty good. But any lower than that, then you can start to feel a little bit more. One thing that's nice about VR chat is that, like right now, we're seated, and I think sometimes the sickness can come from when your avatar is moving, but your physical body, is stationary, and that can be really jarring for people when they start. Dramamine is great to take; that will help a little bit. But I think it just takes, kind of some getting used to.
What about
For
you, Disco?
me,
How are you feeling?
oh, I feel fine. I never had that initial having to get over it or build my VR legs, if you will. I'm not saying I've never been nauseous. Every time I've been nauseous, it's been in an app, usually a game where, yeah, the motion that your player character, that your perspective, the motion that you're perceiving yourself to go doesn't match what your physical side is doing, and so I'm not a medical expert, but I'm guessing your brain and your vestibular system are going, this doesn't compute, something doesn't match. So obviously, and as I wave my hands around, I just throw myself out of the chair. So, where was I? Vestibular system. When your brain, it doesn't compute, and so your brain says, okay, evacuate all of your innards. That said, for things that I'm doing, like when I'm DJing, I'm standing behind my DJ equipment, so I'm not moving a whole lot. In alt space or in VR chat, I'm either sitting down or I'm standing for my performances. And so what my body is doing is to a point matching what I'm doing here. Or even, I think, like when I do like the flight simulators. I love flight simulators. And so even in VR, as I'm seated in a fighter jet zooming around, even if I'm turning my head and so I'm not facing the direction I'm going, there's still I'm assuming that my brain is working through that and saying, okay, if you were actually in a fighter jet, you would still be sitting down. Yes, you would actually be feeling a little bit more of the G's and things as you pull things in different directions, but this doesn't seem too terribly weird to me. I think for a lot of people, it's when things get weird is when the perspectives and things start going around, that some people can have problems. The nice thing about it is for, in some cases, it's sometimes just as simple as closing your eyes, to kind of get that feeling to subside for a minute. Close your eyes, or if you absolutely have to, you take the headset off. It's not like you're a complete passenger with no control. And a lot of apps do go out of their way with sort of by like blocking in your vision and fading out the periphery to kind of help do things to help make things a little bit more comfortable for people. But yeah, sometimes it's just a tolerance thing. Sometimes you just have to do it a little bit in order to build up your VR legs.
I
would
I used
say-
to get real seasick. I was wondering if it would help with my VR with my seasickness as well. But we'll I don't know yet. I haven't been on a boat since. But what were we gonna say? Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, don't try to work through it. Like you will build up your tolerance by doing it, and if you feel a little nauseous, just take off the headset. If you try to power through it, you might get a headache all day. You might feel sick all day. I mean, it's not worth powering through. I have had that happen, a couple times early on, and it was just not good. But those were like,
Man, I will
like,
never forget.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, I had a couple games like No Man's Sky. I love No Man's Sky, but in VR, it just transitioning from like jetpacking around the world to getting into the cockpit of the thing and taking off into space, like just the combination of all those things, and then flipping your spaceship upside down and doing all that stuff. The combination was not good for me, and I tried to push through it because it looked so great and I was having so much fun. And then just all day I was pretty much out of service. So,
Oh God.
just listen to your body.
That's good advice. That is good advice. Well, so Calamander, where can people watch the show? And I know you mentioned the Discord. Where can people find more of you and what you're doing?
Yeah, you can go to the YouTube is also pretty easy to find. It's youtube.com/@improvatars. The Discord is discord.io/improvatars. I'm Eric Michael Callagan on Facebook, so you can find me there. And we usually stream there. We stream to YouTube. We stream to Twitch. The Twitch might still be Who's Line VR, I think. But yeah, normally we stream all those places. And then there's also a VR chat group, and it's improv.4907, I think. Or might be 4567, I can't remember. But if you join that group in VR chat, then you can actually get live into the performances and then be in VR and watch it. Or you can get into VR and join a rehearsal and do it that way. We hold the show, Tuesday and Thursday nights every other week at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so that's probably
Nice.
the best way, I guess. Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely get the links and everything, and we'll put them in the description so that people can find them. And yeah, that's great. Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays is shows. And Disco, you are also tearing it up on the improv stage here. But where can people find your music? Where can we watch you scratch some virtual records?
So I very rarely stream to my own personal Twitch. I need to get back into that. So with the end of alt space and I call it the Church of the Latter Day Disco was my world in alt space. So I'm trying to reteach myself just enough Unity and Blender to bring that in. So it's kind of taken a little bit more of my time. But
Oh yeah, you're moving
stream,
and you're doing stuff. Sure.
I do stream most Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Tribe XR's Twitch channel. It's just twitch.tv/TribeXR. But you can the best way to get a hold of me for bookings or just to see what's going on with me is my Instagram, pano.dj, P-A-N-O. Make sure it's dot, not underscore. Now you're asking me these questions, and it's like, oh no.
No, that's okay. Well, while you're looking that up, I mean, yeah, we'll make sure we have it in the link too.
Pano.dj, P-A-N-O.dj.
Nice. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for being on and for letting me do this, for setting all this up. I really appreciate it. And I'm just going to hop up here and maybe with my camera we can show everybody. You can't see this from where I'm sitting because it's just two-dimensional. But Calamander is running this whole interview. So all the camera shots have been him running these shots live, and there's cameras in the room, but they're invisible to us. Or you might be able to see this little disc here. That's a camera, and I don't know how the camera up here is working. So, but just like really neat.
Sorry.
Do you? Yeah, go ahead. No, please. If you could explain this in a better way than I can, please do. That can't be hard.
Well, I don't know if I can explain it better. I was going to say that little red or that little blue disc over there is just a button that spawns these buttons, and then these buttons spawn the cameras. And I have a little monitor down here, and actually in the back, my bot is watching another larger monitor to record it through OBS on my computer. So that's a lot of craziness.
Wow.
But
yeah, because I'm recording this through OBS too, and it took me some time because of the audio inputs and all that. But what you're doing is not only that, and you're doing that, and you're doing it in VR and setting up cameras. So really appreciate your help.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, actually, one of the things that I went into AltSpace, not to drag it out too long or whatever, but one of the things that when I went into AltSpace, there was no camera system, and I was like the best anybody had in there was they would walk their bot into the middle of the audience and just stand there and watch the stage, and I'm like, they're like, we're in VR. Like, why can't we have invisible cameras spawning everywhere? I mean, there's no cost. You don't have to buy a new camera. I don't know. So anyways, it sent me down this whole long path of trying to figure out how to get it to work over there. Samwise helped me a lot over there. Mason and Chortle. And we set up this camera switching system that was just awesome over there. And now with the Unity uploader through VR chat, it's a lot easier. I can set up the cameras exactly where I want them and the buttons and all that stuff, and I think that adds a lot to the production value, because it just seems like a no-brainer. If you're going to do like a TV show in VR, you might as well have all those tools. So I don't know, it's amazing to be able to run,
right?
Yeah, it's amazing to be able to run this stuff, have a whole theater and put on a performance without having to go out and rent a theater in town, get physical performers in town, build giant banners with our logo. All this stuff would cost, like Disco was saying earlier with the DJ stuff, all of this would cost thousands of dollars to do one performance. So it's really cool to do it here and do it well and have so many amazing performers doing it. So,
do you want to give a quick shout out to the performers, the Improvatar main stage cast, or is it constantly shifting? Is there too many people to?
It is constantly shifting, but I can shout out a few people. Stevie does an amazing job. Zarnia does an amazing job. She's one of our leads. She ran the rehearsal tonight. We got Robbie Ketchup. We've got Lacey. We've got Doge, Sergius. Sherry hosts the show quite a bit. Babs is out of Australia. Kenyon is actually a Meta worker. He works for Meta. So there's just a lot of people. I mean, we have about 150 people in our Discord right now, and about 10% of them are active, but we've got a lot of people in there, and it makes me feel good. And we're going to be doing some giveaways for our YouTube channel too. I have a brand new Oculus Quest 2 headset sitting in the box that I might give away at some point, but we're kind of waiting to see what we're actually going to do with that, or if it's going to be a giveaway or what. So I don't know. We just we have a really great crew here, and it's been a really amazing time with all these people. So
yeah, it's cool. It's incredible. Well, thank you guys very much to Eric Callagan and Chris Macku, although as I know you, Calamander 412 and Disco Jesus. But thank you guys very much for doing this, and well, I guess I'll see you I'll see you tomorrow for the show.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Cool. All right, sounds
awesome.
good.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you all in reality next time. And this will probably be an audio podcast as well. So if you're listening to this on audio or on Spotify or wherever fine podcasts are sold, just go check out our YouTube page. It's Yes and the letter U, Yes and You on YouTube, and you'll see this episode under the Other Than Improv podcast episodes, which are very few on video because I don't do video much anymore. But I hope you guys enjoyed this time in virtual reality. See you next time.
If you're here for improv, go away. This is Other Than Improv with